So that's really funny.
I like that.
A funny story on that shot.
So here we go. So for those on YouTube, right, because it's going out on audio as well. My backdrop. What's the funny story with the backdrop, which is from Alien Dawn or War of the Worlds Alien Dawn, if you look at the new title.
The War of the Worlds is the original title that I was told not to use. It's a movie I made in 2011, and if you can't see it in the audio, it's a shot in Los Angeles.
Oh wow!
Where I literally had let's see now, 1 hour, less than an hour. Sorry, I had a half an hour budget to fly around Los Angeles at sunset, and it was there was no sunset, as you can tell by the footage. And then I had to add explosions in electronically because I wasn't allowed to do real explosions, of course.
No, they frown upon that in major cities, don't they? Causing real explosions.
Yeah, and that was the second last time I'd ever been. I think the second last time I was in a helicopter. The last time we had a little crash, so it kind of turned me into using drones. So
a little crash. What's the difference between a little crash and obviously a big crash is when people don't walk away from it safely. But what's a little crash?
Flying over sand and just something going wrong, and it just kind of ditches in the sand. And nobody was injured. It just was a little shocking, let's just say, jarring.
Drones are safer to do that sort of shot, I'm guessing.
They are.
I would have thought so. So I have got a bunch of mini topics that I'm just going to talk to you about. I'm going to chop them up and end up with about 6 videos out of it. But obviously those listening to the audio will get one episode with everything in. So these are all topics I do want to discuss anyway. And I was like, you know what, I'll chat to Neil about them because he's a movie buff and makes films and stuff. First one, right. Mm-hmm. Which is better, Alien or Aliens? You can't say they're different, so you've got to pick one.
For me, Aliens.
Really? What? For me, Alien.
Well, I saw Aliens was. I just got out of film school, and I remember seeing it, and remember telling the guy I worked for what a great, incredible movie it was. And it really got my adrenaline going. And he said, "No, it's not very good. It's terrible. These Marines, that's not how real military people would act."
When faced with xenomorphs on a different planet. Yeah, I get that. Because the world has so much experience about how it would really happen.
Yeah. So I to be honest, I think it's probably influenced me more. Alien has influenced a lot of people I know, other filmmakers. Who are always trying to recreate that walking down the corridor scene, But for me, Aliens, it's probably influenced me more than anything, film-wise. So I guess, that thing is a work of art, and it's a harder thing to take a sequel and make it as good as the original, but in a different way. So I think that's a harder task, and he made it his own film. I don't think many people have done that. So yeah.
No, I think if you're doing a list of sequels that are as good as, or some say better than the original one, obviously Aliens pops up on that list quite a bit. The Godfather 2 pops up on it quite a bit, but it's a pretty short list.
Well, I it's funny now that I'm thinking about both films. I both filmmakers I owe a debt to. I once got on the film with James Cameron by accident.
As you do.
As you do. Calling around Hollywood, was trying to look for somebody else, and called up his company and said, "Do you know where blah, blah, blah is?" And I spoke to him, and he was such a sweetheart and such a nice human. And that really impressed me because, you hear the stories, but the guy was more than pleasant. And, secondarily, Ridley Scott somehow when the house burned down, may have assisted in me getting a replacement camera. My red cinema camera after the fires in Malibu, it kind of helped put a word in somewhere. So I owe both of them a massive debt, and in different ways.
I think film fans like me also owe both those guys a huge debt for the films they've done. I love both films, but you often see people go, "This one's better than that one," and they're very different. But I think if I was forced to choose, I've rewatched Alien probably more times than Aliens. Obviously, it came out a bunch of years before Aliens did, so it had a bit of a head start. But you watch Aliens, or I watch Aliens, and it's still a great film, but it looks like it was an 80s budget action movie type thing. You watch Alien and you go, that's still a perfect looking film. And unless you knew when that was filmed, I don't think you'd be able to go, oh, clearly it looks like a 70s film. Whereas I think with Aliens, you can look at it and go, yeah, it looks 80s.
Yeah, they with Aliens, they chose some very special lenses, which were different from Alien. They used I believe they're K35 Canon lenses, which the equivalent of those lenses is if you go into an old vintage camera shop, any FD camera lens made by Canon, FD means the mount, any basic old Canon lens, that's not a zoom, will pretty much match what they used. And it's Zack Snyder has been using those same lenses, I think, on the Army of the Dead, or the what's the zombie film in Las Vegas? You know that.
Yeah, but that is Army of the Dead.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So he's been using those lenses to death, and maybe I'm not saying overusing them, but he's been using them to the extreme level of open the RS wide up and extreme focus and all that. So those lenses are kind of legendary, and the two films are completely different in look. But here's the thing: when I saw the Alien and I saw that extra scene with the captain being incinerated because he's been infected by an alien, that actually almost pushed me to tears. And I get why they cut it out of the movie, but they really shouldn't have cut it out of the movie, in my opinion. The emotional intensity and the character intensity, it really shows you what's at stake. And, I get it for running times, the cinema and everything, but that's the one scene I wish they'd left in the film, in the original Alien. I think that would have, personally, it would have been like the greatest thing on, it was an incredible moment.
Isn't it strange how you go back to the 70s and 80s and they're like, oh no, we cut this scene out because the film was running too long at 118 minutes or something. And then now, a lot of films are 3 hours and 20, 2 hours and 15. You're like, that's crazy. What is it with the running times nowadays? Do you think it's a case of where we want to give you more stuff for your cinema ticket money, or?
I think that's part of it. It's a strange situation. I mean, even mid 2000s, it was okay to have extra scenes. I mean, I was punished very heavily for doing a movie that was 100 minutes. It should have been 90, and then I delivered a movie that was 80 minutes and it should have been 90. So it's quite horrible to be forced into making movies of different lengths. Yeah. And you pick up a novel, and you read it and you think, well, this is so many pages, and if it, that's okay. The Stand, for example, loved the novel. It was this thick long, and I found there was a thicker version later. It was a Stephen King novel, and it's a joy to read. It is, and it really is. So the story needs what it needs, and I'm looking forward to doing an dare I say this, an Oscar-worthy type movie that'll be running for about 100 minutes in the near future, where I put my heart and soul into it, and I put my heart and soul into 90 or 100 minutes. It's going to be incredible. But I can say that now, having done so many shitty movies in the past, and they're not shitty to me, other people. But having done so many movies in the past, and then I go on to do 2 epic TV series, each about 6 hours to 10 hours long. I cannot wait to do another 100-minute movie or thereabouts, because it's knowing I got the freedom. If I want it to be 3 hours, it's 3 hours. If I want it to be, 1 hour, it could be 1 hour. I think we have some freedoms now because of streaming, and I'm excited, But what do you think, Stuart? Right now? You go for a movie. How do you feel?
I think a film should be as long as the story needs it to be. I think some films are longer than they really should. I don't see any reason why the latest Indiana Jones film, which I did enjoy, should have been 2 hours and 20 minutes somehow. Come on, seriously. There's got to be stuff that you can trim down. I love John Wick Chapter 4, but that's 2 hours and 50. I mean, that's a hell of a that's a hell of a
I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, it's so good. It's really, really good, but it's like, really 2 hours 50 for an action movie? That's kind of mind-blowing, but it works. The pacing works really well on that. I think where it does fall down is when the film feels like 3 hours. I can't remember which film it was, but I remember I put a movie on and I watched it and I wasn't really enjoying it. And I thought, oh God, how long's this got to go? Oh God, it's only been on 20 minutes. I'm like, oh no, it felt like it had been on for about an hour and 10, which was, I wish I could remember what title it was. Was
it The Beekeeper?
It could well have been The Beekeeper. I just didn't enjoy that film at all. And I do like Jason Statham, so it's not like, oh, he's in it, it's going to be terrible. I like Statham. It's just The Beekeeper was just weird.
I tell you, I got my a guy who used to work for me as an editor and cameraman, Emmett. He's now a director in his own right, and worked together in New York, and now he lives in Los Angeles. But he would supplement his income by being a male stripper, and which he had worked out a lot. So I mean, you could see why he did this. And whenever he would ask the girls, usually girls, what costume, the police officer or this or that, if they said, we don't know, surprise us, he would always go as the beekeeper. Okay. So he had this beekeeper costume, and he would turn up, in upstate New York, and you're ready to do the stripping, but he would just do this crazy beekeeper character, and then he'd have bees inside his beekeeping costume and have to rip his clothes off. That was the gag.
Yeah.
And it never went down well.
I don't think there's many women out there who lie on their bed at night alone going, I wish some beekeeper would come and rescue me. I think it's usually firemen or policemen or plumbers or whatever with the dungarees and, oh, you've got no money to pay your bill. Saxophone music comes. I don't think there's many beekeeper fantasies out there. But again, maybe if there isn't people doing that, then maybe he's going to corner the market on beekeeping stripping.
He didn't.
He didn't. It's not, oh no.
He always said they hated it, but he was happy because he got the money and got to do something stupid. So when I think of the Beekeeper movie, I always think of, who wants to watch a movie about a beekeeper?
He's a beekeeper that used to be a spy, and then somebody wrongs somebody that he knows, and he decides, right, I'm going to have to go on the rampage and kill them all, like you'd expect in any Jason Statham film. But my issue with it is, and he was an actual beekeeper in the film, but he used to be a spy, is all these people that are trying to catch him keep using beekeeper references, going, what's he doing? I think he's trying to eliminate the hive. But FBI agents wouldn't say that. Where's he going next? I think he might be going after the Queen. What Queen? You're in the you're in the US. There is no Queen. You've got a president. There's so many bee references within the dialogue. You're like, that's just odd. And a lot of the fight scenes later on are clearly speeded up really bad. And David Ayer's a good director, so I don't know what happened. I can only sense studio interference again with the David Ayer film, but that was very jarring. The fights badly speeded up.
You always go on your gut feeling when you get a pitch for a movie, and if somebody had pitched me that movie, I'd say, no, that's just silly.
You go, I do know a beekeeper, though.
I would have made it a comedy.
Yeah, it didn't even work.
A comedy about a beekeeper.
Comedy, to be fair.
Yeah. It's a better movie, a stripper, who does the beekeeping routine and it goes horribly wrong.
It's bad. But I saw people saying that they'd watched it. Oh my God, it's amazing. And it's Statham's best film. So I'm like, I'll check it out. I don't mind Jason Statham movies. And I'm like, what is this thing? So yeah, it's an odd one.
Does he kill anybody by putting a bunch of bees inside their clothes?
No, he just does the usual breaknecks and punch people and that sort of stupidity. So it's there's plenty of other films out there if you want some pure escapism and people getting battered. But you should really watch John Wick Chapter 4.
Oh, I
will. Just obviously if you've seen the other John Wick movies.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. My next topic is the internet a cesspool. It seems to be. I seem to see it getting worse. But certainly with regard to film journalists, because it's like, oh, that film's terrible. Why? I've seen a still image from it. It's going to be awful, and they're a lot more vicious online
Yeah.
than they used to be.
It's an interesting question because I do have a qualification in media studies and documentaries, and I have worked as a journalist way back in the day. And my daughter actually worked as a journalist briefly, and she got so disgusted with the journalistic situation that she quit. So as a qualified answer, it's all about money. Journalism has always been about money, but not to the degree that it's at now. And it's horrifying what people are doing. I can actually say, and I've often thought about doing a little documentary. A journalist once cost me, by reporting incorrectly, it's cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars personally, just to get a nice little bit of clickbaiting. So journalism gone astray is definitely a problem, and you got to step back and think, okay, as humanity, what are we doing? What's our future? Let's get this side riled up and this side riled up.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, like for example, both sides of the presidential election, or the UK, ministers, in each party, they all hang out together and drink and have a good laugh, even though they're yelling at each other across the room in the House of Commons, 10 minutes before. So it's the media is forcibly manipulating us to take sides in everything and to be outraged and click on that thing. And, what is the point? I get they need to make money, but surely there's a better method. Surely there's a point where you can do something in a better way. And I mean, it takes a little bit of intelligence, but you think about it. I know people have been employed by the Daily Mail, and they just have to copy and paste, put it out, copy, paste, put it out, they copy other people's articles, twist it a bit, add a few photos that maybe make people outraged, and put it out. The people who win in that scenario are the people who own the media company, and that's it. The journalists got paid, but they don't think and they don't care, and they've kind of given up their life and soul. They probably start out as a journalist wanting to do good, and they've got stuck in this situation. And I'm probably also equally guilty, because made hundreds of, I counted once, it was nearly 1,000 documentaries I've made. Now, that being said, when you're directing a TV show and you're in charge of doing 4 to 5 mini documentaries every day, or specialized news stories, which they're not about news, standalone little documentaries on animals or something, then I counted it, and it was 1,000 different topic documentaries in my career. But they're all about 7 minutes long, full-length documentaries, probably 20. So it's, you have the, I would say the first day of film school in documentary class studies or media studies, they said, every documentary you see is a lie to some level, to some extent. And they cited some of the earliest documentaries ever made were basically propaganda pieces by the Shell company or, whoever. And we watched them, and in the 80s, it was like, wow, that's a ridiculous documentary. How do people buy this about, anything? But back, it was basic propaganda. So I don't think there's, the system is at fault. Can you make an unbiased documentary completely down the middle, telling the straight story? It's been considered almost impossible.
I did. My Comic-Con one is.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because that has no agenda or anything in it. It was.
No, but think about this. Even your choice of where you point the camera.
Yeah.
Say for example, right behind you there was a girl, in a little cosplaying outfit whose boyfriend was holding a gun to her. There's a situation, a story you missed completely. The dark side of Comic-Con, for example, or something like that.
Yeah.
even with your documentary, you're biased by following people, maybe people you knew, for example, like me, so you were tending towards that.
That's true. Yeah.
There's always a slight bias, and then
Yeah.
presenting me as a nice guy, which was very kind, but there's always a bias somewhere because you know somebody or you don't know somebody, and it's what you did was called a fly on the wall documentary.
Yeah.
Which is the purest form of trying to show reality, and that's always the point. And I've done a couple of fly on the wall documentaries, but I faked it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's also called reality television in the
Yeah.
90s before reality was a thing. So it's we are always biased, but what you did was the closest to being as pure as possible, probably 98% pure, perfect.
But
But
not
the
100. But not
yeah.
100. Yeah.
Oh, there's a pretty girl, or there's a look at that alien giant creature over there. Boom, boom. You get some of your bias just by observation.
I
And the fact
was rewatching it the other day. I had it on mute and I just had it playing because I'm helping some people increase their YouTube numbers. I thought I'm just going to watch my thing again because I haven't watched it in years. So nostalgic, that thing. It's like, some of the stuff I'd shot and had experienced, I'd forgotten about. So I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. So it was a real nice trip down memory lane. Makes me want to go do more events because I've done some since I did that documentary, a couple of Grimfests and 3 more sci-fi whales. So there is footage that I could use to maybe do a second one, but I'm probably not going to finish a second one at San Diego Comic-Con again because that was very expensive. And yeah,
it is, isn't it? Travel is very expensive. You did get free whiskey though.
I did get free whiskey. Yeah, free whiskey, and I got some key rings from San Diego, and I got to meet a woman dressed as an Ewok and stuff like that. So
that's interesting.
There is that, I suppose. But yeah, it just seems you go online and people are just miserable nowadays. Certainly when it comes to movies. What's that like from a filmmaker? Because I was chatting with Fraser the other week, and I said, you go back to something like 1984 where Ivan Reitman's going to release Ghostbusters, and he's so excited. He's like, I can't wait for people to see it. This is going to be great. They're going to love it. And then you go now where a filmmaker is going, oh, Jesus, the internet's going to kill me. Do I have to release it? Because they're very vengeful online, and it's quite sad. It's like movies are, for people who watch movies are entertainment. We don't have any financial stake in them. Obviously, for a studio and a filmmaker, you're like, I really hope this thing makes money because I want to make more movies. But for a viewer, we're like, if we watch a movie and it's good, that's great. If we watch it and it's not, oh well, next one will hopefully be better. But some people get really angry at it, and I don't quite understand that way of thinking.
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about that today, and I kind of look upon it like a wrestling match. And this is today's wisdom. If you ever go to a live wrestling show, which I used to love, you get to yell at the baddies and cheer at the the good guys. And it's nothing more fun than yelling, fake abuse at the heel, as they call them in the wrestling world. It's kind of fun, it's kind of that level of entertainment. And I think that somehow translated. My worst reviewed movie has also made the most money, and my most beloved movies haven't made as much money. There's a weird dichotomy there. And I was thinking about this morning because one of my films went up on YouTube, and the torrent of abuse that has already been coming in is shocking. I have to be online literally 1 hour every hour, deleting, erasing, because it's
these are the nasty comments rather than I didn't like the film comments. Because I've seen a few people. I'm going to touch upon one of them, which just made me laugh, and it's like the person's comment just kind of negated the whole argument. So there are still I'm not a fan of this film type comments on there.
Yeah.
But is there a percentage of just sheer abusive comments that come into a filmmaker?
Yeah, it really hurt me in the beginning, and like anyone would, so what's wrong with these people? But you can, I think about the abuse I got on my first film, for example, and yet that movie is still in print to this day. It has made somebody, not me personally, I would say $500,000. By the way, no, not received any cent of that. but it is still selling to this day in Germany, and you know, on DVD. They're still making new versions of it. So obviously somebody likes it enough to want to, you know, watch it and keep selling it. And you know, I look at the torrent of abuse I get online sometimes, and I think, well, thank you for watching my movie and giving me 1 cent
Yes.
for your time.
Yeah.
And though they say they want their half an hour back, which is, you know,
Yeah, I don't understand. So that was one of the
like,
comments I saw.
yeah,
I'll
it's
never get
like,
those 2 hours back. So you don't get any 2 hours back for a film. You choose
yeah,
to watch it. If you don't like it, that's, you know.
yeah, you can turn it off at any time, and
Exactly.
that's fine. You know, you know, it's nobody's got a gun to your head. So I all I can say is, you know, those people who've helped, you know, promote the movie and you know, watch the movie, they're still helping. You know, will I earn money from it on YouTube? Tiny money,
Tiny little bit.
tiny
Yeah.
money, but still, thank you. You know.
Yeah.
So I, I've learned not to listen to these people, because when you meet them face to face, they change their tune.
Yeah.
And they really are sad humans if they feel the need to abuse you that much online, that much. They're
Yeah.
really sad humans, and you know, they can't. You can go into their world, and I have gone into the world of a couple of these people, you know, through a consequence, saying, "Wow, that's, you know, this is your life." The sadness is not their hatred. The sadness is themselves. You know, they're
Yeah.
lashing out because of their internal grief or whatever it is, and you know, that's the reality of it.
I
So
just think it's sad that they can't just realize that not every film is going to be amazing. Not every film is going to change their life. Some films are like, I watched Escape Plan 2 and Escape Plan 3 in the past 24 hours because I'd seen the first one, I'd not seen 2 and 3, and I thought, I'll watch them. They were both fine. They're not going to go in my top list of the year, but they were okay. They were fine. I don't get angry about either of them. And then if I watch something else, that'll probably make me feel a bit better because it'll be better than Escape Plan 2 or Escape Plan 3. Movies they're supposed to be entertainment.
yeah, you know, I go down to the heart and soul of the film. You know, who the person who made it, do they care? And this is another interesting thing I've learned by releasing my movie, The War of the Worlds, this week on YouTube, was somehow YouTube brought up all recommendations. I didn't know there was a movie called War of the Worlds. I think it was Extinction with Tom Sizemore in it.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
I didn't know it
I didn't
existed.
know that either. I like Tom Sizemore. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm watching it, and it's like they didn't care. This I can see, because literally, you know, you got the tripod thing eating somebody, and the cuts of the girl go, oh, God. And it's like the worst 50s style of filmmaking I've ever seen. You know, it's horrendous. You know, they just went out to the backyard of Los Angeles somewhere and shot the girl reacting to something. I mean, I know exactly where they shot it. And literally, it was literally up the road from where my studio was when I shot my version. But you can see at least I cared enough to drive the actors out to the desert and put them in the same shot as the Martian tripod, you know,
Yeah.
to have them running from a real explosion or this or that. I mean, there was a big concerted effort to make the movie in that style, you know, with those, you know, with heart and soul, because I really did care. And then you see this other movie, and it was done probably for, you know, you know, the director didn't care, the actress didn't care, everyone took a paycheck, and the CG is really bad, you know. And you think about there's 4 to 13 years between the two films, yet that film looks way worse because they didn't put any effort in. I'm not saying my film looked great, but it certainly looks better. You know, then 13 years later, you see somebody who really didn't care. And, you know, the film probably made some money for them, and I applaud them for that. But I think it comes down to the heart and soul, you know, and if you are seeing somebody who made a film with heart and soul, you know, that's the best way you can enjoy a movie. You know, John Wick #4, obviously made with heart and soul.
Yep. I was chatting to Rob the other week about the Winnie the Pooh horror movies, the Winnie the Pooh
Yes.
Blood and Honey. And because he didn't like the first one. He really, to be fair, he hasn't seen the first one. He watched 10 minutes and then switched it off because it annoyed him, because he's like, the masks don't look high budget because it's not a high budget film. It costs like $100,000 or something, very low budget film. But
okay.
it made 5.2 million.
Yeah.
And then so they've completed a Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2. And then they've just announced a third one. And they're going to be doing a Winnie the Poohniverse. They're doing a shared universe. And I thought, it's genius, Tile. Poohniverse. It's genius.
This is
and
great. I want that T-shirt.
Exactly, so do I. It's a cool poster design you've done as well. And so Rob was like, he was just mad. He was fuming. Why are they doing it? Because it's 100,000, 5.2 million. He went, yeah, but. I'm like, no, there is no but. You spend $100,000, you've got 5.2 million. That's why they're doing another one. He said, yeah, but I don't get why they're still doing this. I'm like, do you not see the pile of money, Rob? He just couldn't understand why they would keep doing them. And I'm like, I'm fully on board. If people pay money to watch these films, fair play to the filmmakers. I have no issue with that at all.
I would love to have a film that successful.
Same.
Yeah.
Yep.
God bless him. I couldn't do it myself, but I know that if somebody, had a couple of business partners said, let's do that movie, I'd be laughing my ass off the whole time. It would be fun.
Yeah. And I like the first one. I think the first one, it's a good slasher film. I've seen some really bad slasher films. This was a good slasher film. It's weird in a Winnie the Pooh universe. That part is strange, but that was always going to be strange. You were never going to go into a Winnie the Pooh horror film going, oh, this is exactly what I thought it would be. You're not going to know, because it's like kids product horror film. It's a very strange thing to gel together. So for my brain, I just ignored the fact it was a Winnie the Pooh thing and just watched it for a slasher film where people were wearing Winnie the Pooh masks and piglet masks and, killing people in hot tubs and stuff like that. So
yeah, I like it.
Yes. So yeah, I've been reading some of the comments on War of the Worlds, Alien Dawn. There are some where they're like, this looks like it's just a rip-off of War of the Worlds. Have you seen the title? There's tripods in the film. It's not a hidden secret. And it's like, I think some people think you thought, oh, I'll just make a film and I'll try and make it like War of the Worlds and hopefully nobody notices. It's clearly it's a love letter to War of the Worlds, isn't it?
I would have thought so.
So would I.
Well, originally it was meant to be a found footage version of War of the Worlds, and I didn't have the heart to do that because, you kind of, the narrative starts to go a little strange, and I like a little bit of cinematic, imagery. Again, it was made at a time where I was waiting for the money to come in for a film and hadn't received the money. Knew that I had to pay for the rent on the studio pretty quickly. And so do I, basically, okay, I've got 1 year's worth of rent to pay. I've got the money for it, or do I make a movie? So I took, 8 months of the rent to make the movie.
Of course you are. I knew you would do that decision. I'm not like, oh, I'm sure Neil paid the rent. No.
Yeah. So I could pay the rent then for the next 4 years. Yeah. And it worked. It's I was told not to do a War of the Worlds movie by the distributor, but they were wrong, because look at all the War of the Worlds movies we got now, and I would have been, I would have been not hailed as a genius, but I would have been a little bit original. It's like, oh, he did a War of the Worlds movie when he was told not to, and I did try. The film actually has a number of titles. It's by distributors, not me. Alien. It was originally called War of the Worlds. Then it was called Alien Dawn. Then it was called Countdown to Destruction, Battle Invasion, Tripod War, which is I preferred. And then I brought it back to being the War of the Worlds finally again. It was always called the War of the Worlds, and I didn't want to do a typical ancient version, because I thought, well, one day I'd like to do a proper version with a proper budget. So I'm okay with the name changing, but realistically, one day I would really like to do the real War of the Worlds and all the Time Machine, but to do them, set in that era. But we'll see.
The other comment that made me laugh was somebody complaining that your film wasn't as good as the Orson Welles original, and I'm like, Orson Welles? I'm pretty sure it wasn't Orson Welles. It was the one where he mentioned all the Martins died. I'm like, who's the Martins? What's all that? So some of the comments, but yeah, Orson Welles. I'm pretty sure you mean H.G. Wells. I don't think the director of Citizen Kane had anything to do with War of the Worlds, as far as I remember.
But in retrospect, he should have done that movie. He
kind of did the radio broadcast, though, so maybe somebody's going to go, he did radio broadcast. Well, what about movies? But yeah, he did the radio one, which is very good.
He after the radio broadcast, there was, he was actually offered to do the War of the Worlds in the late, in the 30s. Now, can you imagine how, with a big budget, how cool would that have been in retrospect? He chose to do Citizen Kane, which is basically having a dig at somebody rich and famous who basically had the power to destroy him, and did basically kind of destroyed him. And it's a pity he chose that path. Some friends of mine knew Orson Welles in his final years and worked with him, and they told me he seemed to be just, he's had a little bit of hope, but he had been beaten down by life. He was obviously very fat, and he was a shell of a man, which is a real pity, because he'd made a choice that, I'm king of the world. I'm going to take down the head of this media empire by doing Citizen Kane. Obviously he clearly went out there to do that. I mean, do you ever see the movie?
I've tried, and I can appreciate Citizen Kane for the way it looks, and some of the the production of it. It's hiding lights and stuff in the ceiling and all this sort of stuff way before that was even a thing. So I appreciate for the way it looks, but the storyline, I'm like, I don't gel with the storyline.
Yeah.
I'm same with 2001. It's like I look at 2001 Space Odyssey and I go, I can appreciate it, but that film just bores me to tears. I've never made it all the way through the film in one sitting. I've seen it all in chunks, but it just doesn't grab me, which I know is a bit of heresy, because it's up there.
We've all been to that position, and for me, like with 2001, it's an interesting statement. I actually saw it when they did a re-release of it in the cinema, and after Star Wars, let's re-release 2001, and I watched it and I was like, oh, okay, it's not Star Wars. I was young. And I remember when it finished, some young dude who also expected Star Wars yelled out, "Thank God it's over. Yay." And I was like, it's kind of rude.
Yeah, it is.
So I sat with it for a few years, and then I watched it, I guess, after I'd done a few movies, I watched it again, and it was like a rainy afternoon. I just sat watching it. It was like, wow, it became a religious experience. I was completely changed by life, and I assume that, people said you have to be on drugs to enjoy it, but I wasn't on drugs. But it became, I could see why people said that. It was a religious experience watching the movie, and it really felt good watching that film. The more times I watch it. Now I look forward to trying to watch it again, at least with that. The same with Citizen Kane. It was kind of drummed into us at film school. So, that was fair enough. And again, in film school, it's like, ugh, we're forced to watch these movies. Yeah. And so it was really a bit like in high school, you have to read this book. It's like, ugh. But, Citizen Kane kind of grows on you, especially when you learn the real story behind it. It's a little more interesting, and you get in the perspective when you really understand what he went through. Then it becomes better, and I completely get it. It's an odd thing, but it does have its moments, and it does warm your heart eventually. It's just one of those movies, and I completely understand why I would never as a young man would say, I want to watch Citizen Kane. It's like, no way.
Yeah. You're like, oh, do you know what we should do? Get some snacks, get some drinks. Let's watch 2001 or Citizen Kane tonight. It's like, no, it's not a bucket of popcorn movie or movies, in my opinion. But I can appreciate them both. They're just not.
Yeah.
They're not my go-to films. Like, I've not watched this for a while. Let me put 2001 back on.
But they will want. I reckon that one of them at least will warm your heart one day.
Yeah.
It'll happen. It's just weird, And I like the concept that if you're not the right frame of mind, the right place in life to watch a movie, one day it changes. I could say that about every single Baz Luhrmann film. I'm
Yeah.
watching him go. He's like, I
Yeah.
hate this guy. I
Yeah.
don't. But I'm like, what is this? This cartoon over the top. Oh, here I am. I'm acting, and I'm doing this, and here's a song, and here's my costume. But that's always my reaction when I watch most of his movies the first time. But then I know if I watch it a second time, it'll be like, wow, man, the planning and the passion that went into this movie is incredible, and it grows on you and grows on you. And suddenly, I like this filmmaker. So, it's just one of those things in life,
I'm
watched.
the same with Christopher Nolan. I like Christopher Nolan's movies, but some of them I have to watch twice or maybe three times. The first time I saw Tenet, I'm like, I don't understand what's going. I still don't understand what's going on. I've seen it 3 times, but it's a great looking film. And after the first time, didn't like it at all. And then it sat with me in my head for about a week, and I'm like, I really need to watch that film again. And I did, and I really liked it. I was the same with Interstellar. There's 3 hours of cornfields, and what's that thing with the bookshelf? What's going on there? I quite like the music score though, so that's quite nice. And then now that I've seen Interstellar a few times, it's like, actually, that's a really good film, and I do enjoy it. But yeah, I'm like this with Christopher Nolan.
Yeah. What do you think of the Atom Bomb film?
I really like that. I saw that at the cinema, loved it at the cinema. I've seen it since on Blu-ray, bought it on physical media, just like Chris told everybody to do. And yeah, I do. I really like that one.
Yeah. Now, what about Dunkirk? How did you sit with Dunkirk?
I love Dunkirk. Dunkirk I watched twice in the same day. I watched it in the morning on my own, and then Annette came back from work. I'm like, you've got to watch this Dunkirk film. It's amazing. What does annoy me about Christopher Nolan, if there's one thing it's like on a slap him for, it's stop jumping formats.
Yeah.
I get why, because he loves IMAX and hates everything else. But it's like when you watch one of his films on Blu-ray, it jumps frames. Don't stop doing that. Just pick one. Pick a frame and stick with it.
Kind of rude, isn't it?
It's very jarring. It takes you right out of the film.
Yeah.
So he's done that with. I remember that from every film he's done, going back to The Dark Knight Rises. I've not rechecked The Dark Knight, but I'm sure it does it on that, because a lot of that was shot on IMAX. But I just find it just weird. It's an odd choice.
It is, and I do have a camera that'll shoot in different ratios and formats. The open gate format and everything. And I always have to constrain it, make it perfect for the frame that I want. And it's a choice, and I get it. I don't understand his perspective on that point, but fair enough. I can't disrespect the man, because he's certainly the most successful filmmaker around at the moment, and has saved the cinema in the film industry, let's just say, at least in some levels. So
what was that, Tom Cruise? Yeah, Tom Cruise did it as well.
He did, yeah.
Chill out, Tom. I'm on a podcast.
Thank you, Thomas.
How's Top Gun 3 going along? Right, it's fine. You're still working on it. It's not a problem. But yeah, so somebody left a comment after Oppenheimer won the Oscar going, Nolan is the modern day Spielberg. And I'm like, I've never laughed so much in my entire life. He's a good filmmaker, but he's got a few laps to go before he's up there with Spielberg, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think he's his own man. People could say Spielberg is the Hitchcock of his generation,
which they do. Yeah.
Yeah. But and it's funny. I always remember the story about Steven Spielberg snuck onto a Hitchcock film as they were filming in his Hitchcock's latter years, and tried to engage in a conversation. And Hitchcock just looked at him and said, "Get this boy off my set." He kind of kicked him out. It was kind of didn't want to talk, didn't want to have any interest in him. But isn't that interesting how the old world meets the new world? When you would just love to be there in that moment and just see what had gone on.
Have you heard the story that William Friedkin used to tell about Hitchcock?
No,
where William Friedkin was, one of his early directing gigs was an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents or something that. And so Friedkin's on the set, and he sees Hitchcock walking in, and Friedkin's like, "Oh my God, this is Hitchcock. This is like, what is my idol? Oh, I want to meet him." So he walks over to meet him. He's like, "Hi, Mr. Hitchcock, blah, blah, blah." And Hitchcock just went, "Where's your tie? Where's your tie? You should be wearing a tie." And he just walked off. So Friedkin's like, "What?" And he carried on. And then when Friedkin won his Oscar for French Connection, I believe, Hitchcock was also in the audience. Friedkin collects his award, walks past Hitchcock. He went, "How'd you like the tie now, Hitch?" And walks back to his seat with an Oscar in his hand. Brilliant. And it was a clip-on tie as well. So there you go. Hitchcock was not too impressed, but that always made me chuckle.
And that's interesting because Hitchcock never got an Oscar.
No. Which is just weird when you think about it. You're like, how did that guy never get an Oscar? He's definitely one of the best film. You were talking about people being influenced by like Ridley Scott and James Cameron. I'm sure a lot more people have been influenced by Alfred Hitchcock over the years because he invented some of the methods of storytelling in film, I would have thought.
Yeah, yeah. And he I don't think he set out to be, I'm going to be the greatest director on the planet. It's just, I want to do some really cool stuff.
Want to make films.
Yeah, but while I wear a tie, of course, which
yeah, of course.
Which is funny because Chris Nolan does that, and I look at him, it's like, dude, no. I get that. I just couldn't do that, and I'm sure he's got a great reason for it. It's amazing, but I'm the guy I'd want to be wearing the Steadicam rig, the harness. I want to.
Do you want to be more like Tony Scott, where he always wore that vest with all the pockets in and that sort of stuff? He looked like he was Chris Nolan looks like he's just come from a business meeting. Tony Scott always looks like he's just run off a film set. He's like, I'll do this and then I'm off to go film stuff. I always liked the way that Tony Scott looked when he was.
Yeah, I guess so. The one thing I loved was Robert Rodriguez wrote a book on making movies. Way back, which I read and I thought was really good.
I did. Yeah,
but it was always his the outfit he had on. He had like a piece of Steadicam and pockets, big shorts with big pockets in them. I thought, man, I get that. I've been in that situation. It's like with Alien Dawn, War of the Worlds. I shot that movie myself, all off the shoulder, and I had a very similar setup. I had a little Steadicam rig and big ass pockets. But during that movie, I broke my hand, so I had to hire another, DP to shoot most of it. So I literally was doing the whole film one-handed, which is pretty bad. But I like that energy where you're in the thick of it, you're in the weeds, and you're literally, it's your fingers. It's like with the latest thing, the Time War. I pretty much shot the whole thing myself, which I've had some great cinematographers, but I just like the fact that it's all my fingerprints on it, and it's my DNA in the movie, and that thing doesn't look anything like the War of the Worlds or anything else I've ever done. It's its own visual artistic thing, and I maybe it's a little bit of a mental problem I have, but I see Chris Nolan standing back, looking through the viewfinder when the camera's on him and stuff, which is great. I can't be that dude. It's just like I got to grab the camera. I need to touch things. I need to, to really, be there because I have a vision and I know how the camera should be framed. And it's a problem I have. I think maybe I have an issue. I
think it's probably a problem I'd have as well. It's always fascinating me the relationship between a director and a cinematographer. So if you're the director and you're also the cinematographer, I get it because you go, this is a shot I want. Actually, let's just move the camera a little bit. Yep, no, that's perfect. Action done. Right, I've got it. If you're over there and you're the director and the cinematographer's the one doing that, it's like that must be weird for the director to go, what's he seeing? I guess you've probably got like a video, like a monitor so you can see, but what is it like with the communication between you and a cinematographer if you're using one?
You kind of got to find a dude that's on the same page as you. And on my first film, I don't think the DP and I really were on the same mental page. But in retrospect, I think he was used to shooting 35 millimeter, and I was used to shooting, something else, 16. But in retrospect, I can only say like 20 years later, he was a good choice. At the time, he did make the film look good, even though it wasn't at the end of the day what I wanted at the time. In retrospect, he made the better choice. So I was maybe a little green. I was more video, music video, that headspace or that sort of stuff. So, it's kind of a choice that you always make. I worked with Kyle Wright a number of times on a couple of films, and I liked him because he thought the same way as me. Because I actually first met him in Alien, The War of the Worlds, or Alien Dawn, the movie I did in 2011, and he helped me out because I had the broken hand, but he shot the same way as me, and at the time, and so it was a good headspace. There's another DP I work with, Massimiliano Travis, who's an Italian, DP, and he was so much more advanced than me visually. He knew so much more, but I was sort of getting into the realm of, I probably learned a lot from him, shall we say. And it's always a very tough, difficult choice. I've done classes with John Seal, one of the great gods of cinematography and stuff. And I always wanted to know more about camera. But see, the problem is the early days, you're starting out, there's all these DPs around, and I just begged them to teach me something, anything. And most of them say, I'm not going to teach you anything because you will take my job. And they were so rude to me, and they were assholes.
Oh, no.
Like in Australia, in the Gold Coast and Brisbane, that region, they were some of the most arrogantly rude, blah, blah, blah people you'd ever meet in your life. And they were not kind. I came to a point where I could have hired these guys, and I said, no, I'm done with this group of people, and I'm just going to go to Hollywood, and that's the whole story. So, had they taken the time to teach me, it probably would have been a different path. So I always had to learn on my own. And, one day I got an ACS award for cinematography for a music video that I directed and shot myself. And that was a great moment. It's like, well, I'm on the right path. So, the evolution of me visually, around the movie Rogue Warrior, it kind of changed. I was going from that old style of, Neil Johnson cinematography, and that was with me and Kyle. And then I took a step back. So I'm changing who I am as a person. I need to change my vision. And I did dramatically. And so the Time War comes out, which is not out yet, of course, but it's a whole different cinematography style. And it's kind of more like the Stanley Kubrick type thing, the way his films look, shall we say. And it's not a conscious choice. It's just my eye has changed dramatically. So, back to the movie Citizen Kane, the relationship between the director and the cinematographer, I think he was pushing the cinematographer to do things, and the cinematographer was getting excited. And so they would challenge each other. But you look at a movie like Star Wars, where George Lucas was actively fighting with a cinematographer all the time. I think it was Gil Taylor was his name. They were like at loggerheads, because the cinematographer was from the old school, and George was much more the documentary style, which was probably my style, which is much more handheld. And you can see some of George Lucas's influence on the cinematography in places, with the way they cut it together. And, you see the scene where R2-D2 gets picked up by the Jawas, and you can see there's a bit of camera movement, a bit of documentary style cinematography going on. And that's more George bleeding through. And then you look at Empire Strikes Back, and that is just so different cinematically.
Yeah. Different
cinematographer and different director brings a different vision. And it's a glorious looking movie in so many ways. It's much more of an older person's perspective, dare I say it, in so many ways. Then you look at Return of the Jedi, and it's more George Lucas controlling the director again, and everyone being a bit more of a yes man, and it changes again. It's got a whole different vibe, and it's not a bad looking movie by any standards, but it's certainly different. Then you jump ahead to look at Attack of the Clones.
Oh no, my least favorite of the Star Wars ones. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's the same cinematographer on the three prequels with new cameras, and you can see they're fighting with themselves of what to do. because I was in that exact situation, with that new technology. But it's got that documentary feel to it in places, where you got it's ripped off during the battle on Geonosis, you see the camera zoom in and the shaky cam, which we were all doing. And that's a great way to help disguise the, to make it look more real, and there was a point to that. It's like, okay, I know I've got fake stuff. Let's change the cinematography to make it look more real. And that's, I was guilty of that. And you can see that, especially in The War of the Worlds, Alien Dawn, my 2011 movie, where it's like a lot of shaky cam, because I knew that I couldn't sell the VFX well enough at that budget level. So you have to move the camera a bit to try to disguise things. I don't think that's the right decision. If I remade that movie now, my goodness, it would be a different film in every sense of the word. I mean, you've got no idea how far ahead my brain's gone and how I would not do it the same way. But at the time, that's who you are. And that's your heart and soul. That's you. I put my heart and soul into it, but I was a different human being. So, I can't not imagine me not directing and DPing, being director of photography in a movie now. It would take a lot for me to let go. But I know those men exist. Those guys, cinematographers, are out there. But it's a whole new world for me. And I've never been happier, because I can control everything. I've got my Zeiss lenses and my red cinema cameras and everything else. I've never been a happier human being than shooting the Time War. And I think, when we come around to, finishing up Rogue Warrior, the TV series, for example, which is the next project I'm doing, it's going to be glorious, because, I'm to quote James Cameron, I'm king of the world.
Which everybody went mad at James Cameron for that. It's a line from his movie, you absolute dumbass. The amount of people that didn't understand that's what he was screaming.
Yeah.
It depresses me about humanity.
I hate it when people quote my movies to me. It drives me nuts.
Really?
Oh, dude, it's terrible. Somebody wrote me a letter once, about their own problems, and blah, 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 which is, back when people wrote letters, and they finish off, I really have to, find a way to calm down the demons in my head. Signed, that person. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
It's just like, I just don't like my movies being quoted back to me. It's just, I'm not that arrogant. It's like a musician, and I know of a lot of famous musicians get these groupie girls, or special friends, as they call them, who want to have romantic times with the person in the band while playing the music of the band in the background.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Yeah,
it's so creepy.
It's really creepy and weird.
It is so weird.
Yeah,
and I just like, oh yeah, a good time. Here's my music. I'm singing, and it's like, or in the costume they wear on stage, and it's like, I just can't do that. My heart and soul does not allow for me to be that weird.
No. The music thing's definitely odd. That's not. Yeah, that's just the costume thing. You can kind of get, not from the person going, do you know what, I'm going to wear this costume that I wore in the film, but from the person who's, spending time with the person who's wearing the costume. I could understand that part, but not from the person who's like, no, you wait there. I'm going to put my costume on because I should wear this. That is just weird.
Yeah, I maybe because it's I don't know what it is. It's just I don't have that level of ego. You've got to kill your ego to make great art, in my opinion. Yeah. Great artists generally, when they don't have the ego in the foreground, that's when they make the best work. And then it's like, well, I'm blah 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 blah, and I can do what I want, and here's my latest offering. But your heart and soul's not in it. You're just full of your own chutzpah.
Do you not find though that you need a certain amount of ego to stop yourself from jumping off a bridge when a troll comes after you? I would think that's a certain thing.
Well, imagine being told that you don't have what it takes to be in the film industry, or being told that you should never do another movie ever again, being told that you should kill yourself rather than never do another film, or you should leave the country because you're not welcome here to ever do another film in this country. And these are some of the classic lines I've been told by people. Or you should do it our way because we know better, even though because we are a film commission or something else. What you do at that moment is you go back inside yourself and you think, well, what am I doing this for? Do I have a calling in my heart and soul? What else can I do? Is that person right or wrong? And if they're a little bit right, you listen. It's okay. I see their point. I'm going to take it on board. But it's irrelevant. Sometimes they're completely wrong, 100% so wrong, and that's sometimes the case. At least 50% of the time, they are completely wrong.
Yep.
So you have to say, okay, if you take that on board, shame on me for taking the opinion of somebody who is wrong. But it's a point where you say, no, I can do better, and I will. I won't say I'll prove that person wrong, but it's a point where you say, I know better than this person. I know I can do better, and I know one day, 20 years from now or 50 years from now, people will look back and say, thank God he didn't listen to that negative person. Yeah. I've had ex-girlfriends tell me, that, I have no talent.
I mean, it depends on what department they're saying you have no talent. You might be like, seriously, well, I didn't think it was that bad. It's cold outside or something like that. But
yeah, I mean, I could give you a million examples, and it's horrendous. But then you step away from that person, and I'm looking forward to the day when I have a big award in my hand. I can say, look, hey, I made this movie, got an award.
How'd you like this tie, Mr. Hitchcock? That type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the negativity of humans. What are you accomplishing by voicing your negativity upon somebody else? What does it do?
Does it make you feel better to try and tear somebody else down? It's like, I don't quite understand.
Yeah, and it probably does.
Yeah.
You go inside the heart and soul of these people. You say, okay, I need help. Can you help me with this? No, I won't help you. I won't contribute to helping you because, whatever reason. But deep down inside, they are the fragile individuals, and you step over them. You look upon them as barriers that you just step past, and you never look back. And I've had to wipe out people from my lives many times because remove them from my life because they're so negative that you just can't. You can't be infected with the negativity anymore, and it's horrendous. But I don't regret ever, stepping past somebody in a polite way.
Yeah. You don't like punch them or anything. So.
I'd like to.
Yeah. So where are we with the Time War? This is a question I do like to ask you periodically, just so I can get a bit of an update.
Oh, very good question. Now, the Time War, I'm going to relate it back to the War of the Worlds movie I made. Both have tripods in them. I finally figured out a technique of, in War of the Worlds, okay, we had the CG walking tripods. That is hard to do. I'm going to tell you right now, to make those things walk, it's really hard, even in 3D, because the balance and the, geometry and the gravity is really difficult. So, thanks to me doing that film, I knew the problems. So I thought, okay, I'm going to build physical walking battle tripods for the Time War. Because the character in that was a big H.G. Wells fan, and she read the book and had a vision of building tripods, and she did. Now I tried animating it, didn't work. Don't even start with that. You got to be a god of physical puppetry to do it. And I tried puppetry in the War of the Worlds, by the way, as for the original film. It's really hard to puppeterize these things. So what I did is I had the very little CG in the Time War, 3D stuff, but I had the bottom part was, walking, the legs, because the only way I can make it work. But I built the physical top part for real, and I tracked it along with the leg. Really tricky thing to do, but it's nice. You see these tripod things rise up from behind the lava, and there's a real tripod head on it, battle tripod, and it moves. That's all real. the legs are fake, but the top part's real. So I've been, finishing up the VFX in the Time War. I think I'm just about. The Time War is for those who don't know, is a 10-hour television series, or 8-hour, based upon Adolf Hitler traveling through time, rewriting history, and his daughter tries to stop him. So it's a period piece based on a true story. Not really.
The Hitler part is maybe not. Although we don't know the time traveling, it could be real.
It could have happened in a different reality.
You don't know, Neil. Stop being a skeptic.
I know. And yes, so it's. I think it's pretty much locked VFX wise, which is great news. So now what I got to do is I'm doing a viewing today and tomorrow of the whole 10 hours. And then that's why I got a comfy chair to sit in.
Nice.
So you can't see I have a nice big yellow leather couch. And then I'll start work on the color grade music and VFX, sound effects simultaneously, which is my favorite part. I love doing sound effects and I love placing the music in. So that's kind of the next phase. I've been I built an audio station, for all the mixing and stuff. So that's about to start, and that's going to be fun. I'm actually very excited about this. I was supposed to go to Iceland this week to film a volcano.
Yeah.
But I realized I can't afford it.
No, it's not. It's not like a few dollars, is it, to get from the US right over to Iceland via way of the UK?
Yeah, it was
pricing.
Beyond my budget. And I'm just don't talk to me about volcanoes. I'm heartbroken. It's the
and I'm guessing, hopefully this isn't a spoiler, but you mentioned that there was a tripod rising above lava. The lava of these shots you've already got, is this stuff you shot?
Yes.
In location, actually,
Yeah. Yep. Well, that was the thing. I went to a real volcano with the Red Cinema camera and other cameras and drones and everything, and filmed real volcanic eruptions and lava. And I was there when there's nobody else there. Just me and the volcano for 20 miles in the rain, and it was the most glorious experience of my life. It was magic, and I managed to capture some great moments, and that's all in the Time War. That's all there. I couldn't have done that with a DP because you can't just
you go, hey DP, go film that lava, get closer. Get closer. Yeah, no, that's
you can't ask people to do that. You can, but they want to be paid danger money. But for me, no problem. I can hike 3.5 hours up a mountain with equipment, nearly break my back, and get there, film for 3 or 4 days in a row. That's what it took.
How many hours were you actually at the volcano per session on average?
The first time it was about 2 or 3 hours, and it wasn't enough. And you just want to bathe in the glory of it. So, I learned to stay there as long as I possibly could. 6, 8, 10 hours, because you just want to enjoy that moment. And yeah, it's a couple of times I got chased by police, and I was chased by police across lava because I went to the wrong places.
Oh, you went to the wrong lava.
Well, they had ways, they had rules. I get the rules.
They don't want like people from other countries falling into volcanoes and dying.
No.
So there was
exactly. I wasn't planning to die that day, and I was very careful. But the general public aren't that intelligent.
They really
don't have the gas mask, for example, and the goggle. You need this sometimes. So training.
Yes. So War of the Worlds Alien Dawn is on your YouTube channel. At the minute, it's free. It's been up-res to 4K. Is up-res the correct phrase? Is that the correct terminology?
That's about right, yeah.
And how long do you think it may remain there for? Have you not decided yet?
I haven't decided. It's a situation where you just want to... it may have to take it down for marketing purposes, legal purposes, or whatever, down the line. I'm doing it to be kind to people because, people keep saying to me, oh, I want to watch your movie. And it's like, well, you can go to Tubi or you go this place. It's such a mess right now. It's like, here's one central spot. So I'm going to stick all my movies there for a limited period of time, just so people can watch them for free. And that's it. The views do generate a little bit of income, and any money I earn from those views will go into an account where I can pay for 3D printers and re-edits of all the films, but remastering of the films. Things have got to pay for themselves. So there'll be a point where I'm going to sit down and not recut, but remaster everything, redo all the VFX for everything properly, to the level that I wanted at, not what the distributor demands. So you will eventually see an improved version of all the films. And unlike the other special editions that are made in this world, these special editions will be better because they won't be hampered by a rush of editing and a VFX run. So it's simple things I want to do because I'm now in love with making movies to this day, and I'm just sad that I had to throw things out the door before they were ready.
Yeah.
So
And so if people want more free movies to watch on your YouTube channel, go watch the movies that are already on the YouTube channel.
yeah, Empire Motion Pictures is the company. So I think it's youtube.com/ I don't know, Empire MP or something, but
I'll put it in the show notes. For the people on the audio, the link is in the show notes. For people on YouTube, I'm going to tag it in on the show notes anyway, but also, do you know them little boxes that come up like up here going, watch this video next? I will tag your channel in, and a little box will appear and they can go watch. So what's up there at the minute? Rogue Warrior, Robot Fighters up there, Chrononaut, The War of the Worlds, Alien Dawn. But what else? Yeah. What other stuff can they find on your channel? I know there's some making ofs on there, which are
lots of making ofs. I've got an archive of 500 music videos. Eventually, I'm going to have to get everything released.
Wow.
What I made. But I might have to do that as a separate channel. I'd like to have everything I've ever made online, just in case I die. Yeah. There's a copy of it somewhere in the world. So I think that's yeah.
I think that way as well. It's like when I do a podcast, it's like I need to get it online. It's a really morbid way of thinking about it. I need to get it online as quick as possible in case I drop dead. Yeah. Because if I drop dead and it's like this conversation is just sitting on a hard drive, Annette might not know how to upload it. So it's a conversation that's lost and it makes me sad. So I do think of that morbidity or mortality thing now and again. We need to make sure everything I've ever done is online so people can watch it when I'm long gone. It's just weird. When I've gone into the mothership with Richard Dreyfuss and I'm just, done one, I'm not coming back.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. We're such mortal beings, it's really quite sad.
Yeah.
And it's that's why I'm putting so much effort now into the Time War and any future films, because my soul can't take kicking out anything half-hearted, for the sake of a distributor.
Yeah.
Or a producer. It's like I want to put my best effort in. I'd rather starve and put my best effort in now than receive money.
Yeah.
It's not about making money. I'm as poor as a church mouse, but I've never been happier.
Yeah. So it's about finding the balance. It's about not being as poor as a church mouse, but being happy as well. So it's like we need to try and level them rather than being here. We'll try and get them to here.
Yeah. It's a good balance.
Yeah. It's not an easy balance to find, but no. we do continue the search to find that balance anyway. So
exactly.
What is your plans for the rest of the day on this 1st of April? Welcome to a new month, by the way.
Oh yes.
This whole conversation's been an April Fool joke. I'm never going to release it.
None of it's real.
None of it's real. Films don't exist. We're not even real. We're AI.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you're computer generated.
I am. Max Headroom. Yep.
It's literally going to sit down and watch the Time War, from as much as I can handle in one day.
Yep.
I tell you what, the one show I am watching right now is the Three Body Problem on Netflix.
Okay.
It's a Chinese science fiction novel that was turned into a series, and I am enjoying it thoroughly so far. It's quite wonderful. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I know where the story's going, so I think it's a sleeper film, a sleeper series.
I've seen a lot of people talking about it. I don't really know what it's about, but it's one of those it's a title that's progressed beyond the people that just sit and watch Netflix all the time. You hear people who generally don't talk about stuff talking about the fact they're watching it. So
it is a weird title, though. It's somewhere when they, the American company bought the Chinese book. Okay, let's translate the title. Three Body Problem. Yeah, that kind of works with the translation. That'll do. It's probably not the right. I get the point of the title, but could have been a better. It's fine, you know.
We're watching, we're up to date so far, a documentary show called Quiet on Set, which is all about the early days of Nickelodeon. Whoa, that's a harsh program, that one. It's all about how creepy and weird some of the Nickelodeon stuff were. So I
saw that go by.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's been 4 episodes on so far. There is a 5th one, I think, in a couple of weeks, but it's interesting.
Yeah, as a young little boy in the media at a very young age, myself as well, you know, there are predators everywhere, and this is I can attest to that fact. But you know, you also can deflect these predators pretty easily. You know, it's horrendous. I've encountered some horrendous people in my time, but I also managed to, you know, keep myself intact by saying no.
Good. Yeah.
That's all I can say. And sometimes punching them in the face.
Yeah,
and I'm not joking. I, you know, at the age of 10, I punched a sexual predator in the face who was 21 or 22, and I ran a mile. But, you know, sometimes you got to do these things.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the program you're watching, 3 Body Problem, sounds more fun than the one Annette and I are watching. So we're probably going to watch something fun, or I don't know what tonight, but we'll watch something.
Yeah. Well, that 3 Body Problem, it's, you know, give it time. It's I think you'd enjoy it. But I haven't I'm only up to episode 2, so I have nothing else to say.
No. I shall have a catch up with you about that when it's all finished and you've completed watching it. So,
lovely.
Well, you enjoy your Easter Monday. Is it an Easter Monday in the US or
not so much?
Is it a public holiday though?
No.
No, it's right. Oh, okay.
I know. I may go to the camera shop and buy some. I may go to the camera shop and buy some vintage lenses soon. You know.
That's like your adult version of kids going to a sweet shop, isn't it? Kids go to buy sweets. You go to buy camera lenses and drones. That's
pretty
and stuff
much
like
the
that.
truth.
So.
No, it's camera lenses mostly.
Yeah. But always fun catching up with you, Neil. And good luck with watching the Time War. And I look forward to watching it when it's out and stuff. And I will keep pestering you for updates on where you are with it.
Thank you. Can I give a plug?
Always.
Dexter's Camera in Ventura, California is the greatest camera shop that I go to, and it's like my secret hangout, you know. Some people hang out at the local shop smoking cigarettes. I hang out at Dexter's Camera in Ventura.
So if you watch like the Kevin Smith films, Jay and Silent Bob hang out in front of the Quick Stop, you hang out in front of Dexter's Camera shop.
Yeah, pretty much the same way, yes.
Have you got a Silent Bob? Because I think you're probably more like the J, or do you think you would be the Silent Bob and not? I think you're more like the J. Sort of.
I'm definitely more like the J. You know, I'm trying to pull a deal on all the lenses. Say this is only worth $10. You know.
Yeah,
that's me.
But shout out to Dexter's Camera Shop.
Yeah,
send me some cameras, Dexter. No, just kidding. Send them to Neil. Yeah. But yeah, you enjoy your day, Neil. And I will chat to you soon.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okie doke.
Bye. See you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.